Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching voicepk.net. This is a special. It's a special because one of Pakistan's most high-profile murder cases has come to a conclusion. Noor Muqaddam case. In the Noor Muqaddam case, the Supreme Court has upheld the death penalty of Zahir Jafar and has also given life imprisonment for the rape of Noor Muqaddam. We have with us Taira Abdullah, who has been going to all the hearings of these cases at the Supreme Court. She's a rights activist, a well-known rights activist in Pakistan, and has been following the Noor Muqaddam case. Taira Saiba, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Today you were in the courtroom, and I know that a lot of feminists were very upset by the way the court proceedings were held, by the way Noor Muqaddam's personal life was talked about in court. But did you not expect this? You have also covered the Mukhtara Mai case. Have we come a long way from the Mukhtara Mai case, or just one step forward and two steps back?
Many thanks, Muniza Sahiba. I wish I could say yes or no, but there's no such thing as a yes or no answer. The glass can be half full, it can be half empty, it can be both at the same time, and it is. What I wanted to say with respect to comparing the Mukhtar Bibi case, and allow me to just take 1 second to remember your mom. She was right there with us in Multan, right there, 25 years ago. She was there in Multan, and I can't forget it. So were you. So were you. So let's put it in historical perspective. Surviving rape and having the guts in Pakistan to file an FIR, a case, and to have the courage and the bravery to run through the gamut of character assassination that women in Pakistan go through. That is a case that stands alone all by itself, the Mukhtar Bibi case. Now, this is a murder case, compounded by rape, compounded by torture, brutal torture, compounded by abduction, of course, abduction and kidnapping and illegal confinement and torture and all sorts of other things, all sorts of things. Now, the point here is, in 25 years, where have we come? The conviction rate, Mukhtar Bibi, we actually went all the way to the Supreme Court and lost. We won at the trial court stage. We won at the anti-terror court stage. We even, at one point, we won in the Multan bench of the Lahore High Court, yes, but we lost in the Lahore High Court, and the Supreme Court upheld that second judgment, the verdict of the Lahore. So, and that took 17 years. This has taken 4 years. So yes, in a short answer, yes, there has been some progress.
But only because, I mean, let me interject here. Only because we lost Noor Muqaddam. Had she survived, maybe it would have been a different story. The reason I ask you this also is that there is another case, and let's first I'll let you finish your thought, and then I'll come to another case. Yes.
The thought I wanted to finish was that in any courtroom, trial stage, High Court stage, Supreme Court stage, the level of discourse and the attitudes of judges depend upon the direction the lawyer is taking you in. And here, I have to talk against the defense lawyer, the convicted killer's lawyer.
Zahir Jafar's lawyer.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
The convicted killer's lawyer.
Right.
Who was desperately clutching at straws in an open and shut case. And as we say, allow me to interject a little bit. The case was a foot ruler, straight as an arrow, and he made it into a pretzel and a jalebi. This is what he was doing throughout, a jalebi and a pretzel.
What was the attitude of the judges?
Okay, so when he brought in the victim, Noor's character assassination, in an ideal world where we had fair-minded, unbiased, non-patriarchal, non-sexist, non-chauvinist, non-misogynist judges, they should have stopped him right there. Mr. Lawyer, defense counsel, please stop right there.
what happened instead?
They didn't. They didn't. They allowed themselves to be taken down the garden path, down that tangent. This gentleman was doing, I told you, he was doing pretzels and jalebis. So he was going down garden paths, tangents, diversions, digressions. He was doing all of that. But 3 judges should have, I don't want to be in contempt here, and your mom would have understood this far better than either you or me. But they should have said, stop right there. We are talking about a dead body, which is a decapitated and a tortured, brutally tortured dead body. Stop right there.
Well, you have every right to criticize the
yeah,
judgment once it's public property.
I'm just saying that, but that would have been in a civilized world, in a world where women are respected, in a world free of misogyny. I would have said, stop right there, Mr. Defense Counsel.
But let me take you to Qandil Baloch's case. Another case where a young woman was murdered. She was a star. She was one of the most well-known stars. She was called the Kim Kardashian of Pakistan at the time. And she was killed, cold-blooded murder by her own brother. Her own brother actually killed her. And then what happened was that the court, released him. The reason that they released him was they said that it was not an honor killing and the mother had already forgiven him. It was a regular murder. Now, in the cases of women, we have always heard that, okay, first the lawyers then have to establish whether this was an honor killing or not. And because the parents are involved and the brother is usually involved or the father is usually involved, they say it's not an honor killing.
Okay, first of all, I don't need to correct you. I don't need to teach you. I don't need to inform you. Dishonor killing, okay?
Right.
Not an honor killing. There's no honor in killing women. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, in this particular case, there is a lot of circumstantial evidence saying that he may be the person who smothered her with a pillow in her bedroom, in her sleep. But there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So we won't go there because, it hasn't been proven beyond reasonable doubt. I don't want to go there.
You're talking about the cleric who was involved.
Who was allegedly involved.
And instigated the crime.
Instigated the crime because his reputation was at stake. Huh? Character assassination there also.
Right.
But here also. Now, the problem is that during General Ziaul Haq's 11 years of military rule, dictatorship, he, by one stroke of a pen, promulgated so-called Islamization laws. They've got nothing to do with Islam. It was a project funded by the Saudis and the American CIA, and we don't want to get into the politics of it because we're discussing gender-based violence here, so we'll stick to that. But there is a background, right? So when he promulgated a lot of laws, like the Hudud ordinances, the Zina, the Qisas and Diyat, the Evidence Act, etc., the Blasphemy Act,
right.
So many. We will hold till they are repealed that when a law is promulgated by a military dictator by one stroke of the pen without any parliament enacting it, a democratically elected parliament in elections, how dare you call them laws of the land? They are not laws, they are ordinances, not enacted.
And it's a big pity that we have not been able to repeal it.
Okay, but my last word on this. Why were we not able to repeal it in the 18th Constitutional Amendment of April 2010 when an all-parliamentary parties committee was set up under the chairpersonship of Mr. Raza Rabbani, who was chairman of the Senate at that time. And we were outside. Your mom was right there standing in front of us and leading us. So many women's rights organizations, women's rights activists, the National Commission on the Status of Women at the time were sending written demands and recommendations and suggestions. And please, we came down to pleading. Please.
What was the plea?
Repeal the 8th Constitutional Amendment of General Ziaul Haq 1985 because it was done by a non-elected parliament, a selected Majlis-e-Shura. There's nothing democratic about it.
From what I understand is
It
that
was not
what you
democratic.
were pleading was that in the cases of murder, murder of women,
Qisas and diyat.
the qisas and diyat should be dropped, and it should be treated as a regular murder,
Okay.
and there should be no forgiveness.
Absolutely, but I just want to make it may sound like a tiny,
Yes, of course.
clarification, if you wish. When we talk about this project, that's why I mentioned the Islamization project, Saudi funded, American
Right,
CIA
right,
funded, and you
right.
thought I was going down the political lane. I'm not. I'm just saying that let us not bring religion into this. Let us not bring Islam into this. Let us talk about a democratic setup in a constitutional republic, in a constitutional state, and a parliamentary state.
Okay, so
I want to say this Qisas and Diyat was never enacted by any parliament of Pakistan.
Okay, this is a very interesting thing that you say. Now, to conclude our conversation, what are the takeaways from the Noor Muqaddam case? How will this impact women's rights in years to come?
I think it's a landmark judgment. At the trial stage, at the High Court, please note it's been unanimous. The trial court judgment, Islamabad High Court first appeal verdict, and then the Islamabad High Court second appeal verdict, which was headed by the then Chief Justice of the Islamabad High Court himself.
How will this impact women, regular women?
And now the Supreme Court. I think it's going to be absolutely a landmark milestone case that is going to be cited for decades and decades and decades and centuries to come, because number one, women and girls will feel more protected by the state. Secondly, Mr. Shaukat Muqaddam, by prosecuting the case, by filing the FIR, by standing there in support of his deceased daughter, his daughter who was killed so brutally, standing like a rock, and us supporting him standing there like a rock, I think it sends a very clear signal to everybody. Would-be killers, would-be rapists, would-be abductors and kidnappers, lawyers, judges. I think it sends a message across Pakistan and maybe even beyond that, look, there's no such thing as impunity. We will no longer allow impunity.
That's very interesting that you say that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I think that the real question is that will impunity be allowed for all those women who may not be as high profile as Noor Muqaddam? And that remains the question. And we shall focus on those women who are not given the kind of resources that Noor Muqaddam was given, and have a conviction rate of less than 0.5% for rape and for honor killing. These are very abysmal statistics. So we hope that the Noor Muqaddam case will in fact be a landmark and help all those women who would not have had the opportunity of having the media gaze at them. Thank you for watching. From voicepk.net, this is Munize Jahangir.
आपकी खबर आपकी आवाज़ voicepk.net